the last 2 weeks. Over in Columbia County, schools kicked off their first of virtual education. Today, middle and high schoolers began learning from home. Students had up to 5 hours of live interactive classes with teachers. Elementary schoolers learning from home will start a week from today. A Georgia high school will be closed again tomorrow for cleaning after a COVID outbreak. This comes after a viral photo showing students in a quiet hallway not wearing masks. The superintendent at North Paulding High said they are thoroughly disinfecting and cleaning the school, but the status for Wednesday is not clear yet. Mark Strassman reports.
Just days after this photo of North Paulding High School was posted online, officials confirmed that in-person classes are now suspended. In a letter to parents over the weekend, the principal says, "We know there were 6 students and 3 staff members who were in school for at least some time last week who have since reported to us that they have tested positive for COVID-19.
They kind of sent us into school and used us as guinea pigs."
Sophomore Waters, who was briefly suspended last week for posting the photo, says the 9 cases are very concerning.
Because even then, we don't know how many people those 9 people came in contact with.
Of the 21 school districts reopening today, 8 will be in person full-time, many of them located in the South.
We know that children can get infected. They are not immune to getting infected in the first place.
Dr. Audrey Odom-John specializes in pediatric infectious diseases at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, over 338,000 children have tested positive for COVID-19 since the onset of the pandemic. More than 97,000 of those were during the last 2 weeks of July. A new report from the CDC found that COVID-related hospitalizations for those under remain relatively low. Hispanic and Black children hospitalized at much higher rates than white children.
There is certainly some concern that those children have underlying health conditions that put them at higher risk for getting severe illness when they do get infected.
New today, one of college football's largest conferences preparing to opt out of the 2020 season. Tomorrow, Big Ten leaders are expected to announce they are canceling the football season. Sources say presidents of the Big Ten universities voted 12-2 to cancel the season, with the 2 votes to play in 2020 being Iowa and Nebraska. President Trump weighed in on college football, tweeting, quote, "The student athletes have been working too hard for their season to be canceled. #we want to play." No word yet where the other Power 5 football conferences, including the SEC, stand after this announcement. You're taking a look over Aiken. Gorgeous skies, but that could be true. Some teachers across South Carolina are getting their first look at how their students did this spring. Test scores for advanced placement exams are in, and they show students scored higher than last year. Jason Raven has a look at that data.
It is important to note this is just a small percentage of students here in South Carolina, but it's the first measure of student achievement we've gotten since the pandemic started. Now, according to data obtained from teachers across the state, 62% of students in South Carolina who took an advanced placement test scored a 3 or higher in 2020. Now, that's 4% higher compared to 2019. And according to data from the State Department of Education, this is the largest annual jump we've seen. This data dates back to 2000. Now, test-wise, things were different this year. The exams were taken at home and online, and it is important to note that the number of students who took the test this year was slightly down compared to 2019. But teachers say these results do show students retain the material they were taught during distance learning.
Online learning still happened, and students and teachers still worked just as hard, if not harder, to get the material. We weren't able to do a lot of the fun hands-on things that we would have done in class, but they were still motivated to get the learning done.
Now, since the exams were taken at home, it was open note, open book for the students, but cheating was highly discouraged. Now, teachers I talked to were able to see their student responses, and they say they didn't notice any rampant cheating among their students. In Lexington County, I'm Jason Raven.
Some of the biggest score increases were in the AP Biology, U.S. History, and Language test. And just into the newsroom, SC Superintendent Molly Spearman has approved the reopening plans for all 81 school districts in the state.
12 at 5:30.
Chaos in Chicago as over 100 people are arrested for looting. The city now left to clean up the destruction. And a massive explosion in Baltimore turned homes into rubble. Crews now searching through it for survivors. But first, classes back in session for Augusta University. And the first day on campus looked a lot different. Hand sanitizer stations and signs for social distancing everywhere. But those weren't the only noticeable changes. Sydney Heiberger shows us.
First day back on campus and things definitely look different. There aren't nearly as many people out and about, and the university says that's intentional. Perhaps that infamous college peer pressure is working for good.
Everyone else is doing, you don't want to be the only one walking around with just a mask, like not a mask.
Students wearing masks even outside when they're not required.
I think people around here just have like a general understanding of like the risks that come with not wearing a mask.
And students like Grace Garrigan say even though classrooms aren't routinely cleaned between classes, there's a sense of personal responsibility.
My 2D professor actually told us to sanitize our desks before we sit down and before we leave.
But inevitably, even with mask wearing, sanitizing, and social distancing, the numbers show some students will contract the virus.
When we're walking around the dorms, we definitely have our masks on, but to be honest, when we're hanging out with each other, and we are hanging out, our masks come off.
Right now, the university has nearly 9,600 students enrolled. That's a record high. But Dr. Gretchen Kaufman says their hybrid learning model limits the amount of students on campus at any given time.
It'll be very obvious just as you look around.
Contact tracing can be hard when college students constantly move between different buildings. But Dr. Kaufman says their goal is to limit contacts altogether.
A contact right now, in order to be contact traced, is 15 minutes or more, 6 feet or less. So if you stay 6 feet apart and you don't interact even at that distance for more than 15 minutes, you don't have any contacts to be traced.
Now, the university says if a student feels sick or thinks they've come in contact with a COVID-positive person, they have a list on their website of the exact steps those students need to take. In Augusta, Sydney Heiberger on your side.
And we're taking a look in